winter street like a warning, carrying with it the kind of cold that didn't just touch the skin, it reached for the soul. Caroline Hayes had never imagined her life would bring her to this moment, barefoot, shivering, and collapsing onto a blanket of unforgiving snow as the world around her blurred into gray. The sting of icy pavement bit into her legs, and her breath came out in trembling clouds, fragile and breaking apart before her eyes. She had run until she couldn't run anymore, run from betrayal, from heartbreak, from a life that had unraveled faster than she could hold it together. And now, sitting alone on a deserted Chicago street, snowflakes gathering on her lashes, she finally let herself fall. She didn't cry. She didn't scream. She simply folded into the cold, almost welcoming its numbness, until the sound of approaching footsteps broke through the storm of her thoughts. Fire. If you believe kindness and second chances still matter in this world, please like, comment, share, and subscribe. Your support helps us bring more stories that touch the heart. Caroline's mind drifted back through the chain of events that had led her here. Just hours earlier, she had stood inside the apartment she once shared with her fiancé, Thomas, a place filled with carefully built dreams and quiet, hopeful mornings. But that afternoon, those dreams shattered when she found the truth she had never imagined he was capable of: another woman's belongings hidden carelessly in their closet, a message on his phone that confirmed her fears, and a confession that came far too easily from his lips. Her trust, something she had offered so fully, had been broken without hesitation. She walked out before he could reach for her, before he could twist the truth, and before her own strength could fail. She didn't stop to grab her shoes. She didn't grab her wallet. She didn't think. She just walked into the winter storm, hoping movement would be enough to outrun the ache clawing through her chest. The city blurred around her, honking cars, distant sirens, strangers bundled in coats, while she drifted through the cold like a ghost who had forgotten how to live among the warm. By the time she reached the quieter snow-covered stretch of Lincoln Avenue, her body was nearly numb, and her legs buckled beneath her. She sank to the ground without resistance, watching the snowfall as if it were the curtain closing on her story. But before that curtain could fall completely, a shadow approached. A man dropped to one knee beside her, his boots crunching in the snow. His brows tightened with a mix of concern and disbelief as he gently touched her shoulder. His name, she would later learn, was Marcus Lee, a former firefighter who carried both courage and gentleness with equal weight. He had been on his way home from a long shift when he spotted her, a woman alone in the snow, her dress torn, her bare feet reddened by the cold, and her face carrying a despair he recognized all too well. Marcus spoke softly, though Caroline barely registered the words. She remembered only the warmth of his coat as he placed it around her shoulders, the steady support of his hand on her back, and the unexpected safety in his presence. He didn't demand answers. He didn't ask why she was there. He simply gathered her into his arms and lifted her off the freezing ground, holding her like someone whose life still mattered, like someone worth saving. He brought her into a nearby cafe, its windows fogged from the warmth inside and the scent of fresh coffee filling the air. As the staff hurried to offer blankets and a seat near the heater, Caroline slowly began to thaw. Not just her body, but the part of her heart she had believed was frozen solid. Marcus sat across from her, giving her space yet staying close enough that she never felt alone. She noticed the snow melting from his hair, the quiet steadiness in his eyes, and the kind of patience that didn't ask anything in return. Little by little, her story spilled out, the betrayal, the heartbreak, the confusion, the sense of losing herself in a life she no longer recognized. Marcus listened with the kind of attention that made her feel human again. He didn't interrupt. He didn't judge. He simply held her words with care, offering only the gentle reassurance that she wasn't alone. Caroline found herself trembling not from cold, but from the release of pain she had carried for far too long. Marcus handed her a warm cup of tea, its steam rising between them like a quiet promise of comfort. When she struggled to steady the cup, he covered her hands with his own, not to control her movement, but to lend strength to it. As the minutes passed, the cafe lights softened around her, and Caroline felt something she hadn't felt in months, a sense of belonging, fragile but real. Marcus offered to walk her to a nearby women's shelter, where she could rest safely for the night. She hesitated, not because she didn't trust him, but because she didn't trust herself to face the world again so soon. Yet Marcus never pushed. He simply stood, extended his hand, and waited. And when she finally reached for it, he held it with the quiet certainty of someone who intended to guide, not rescue. The walk through the snowy street felt different this time. The same flakes that once blurred her vision now looked brighter, softer, almost hopeful. The cold no longer pressed in around her, it lingered only at the edges, held back by the warmth of the stranger walking beside her. At the shelter door, Marcus paused and looked at her with a sincerity that surprised her. He told her she was stronger than she realized, that falling wasn't failure, and that sometimes the snow we collapse in becomes the ground we rise from. Caroline felt tears sting her eyes, not from pain, but from the rare and unexpected kindness of a man who had nothing to gain by helping her. Inside the shelter, she wrapped herself in a warm blanket and watched Marcus step back into the snowy night. She thought he would disappear from her life as quietly as he had entered it. But he didn't. The next morning, she found a note left at the front desk, written in steady handwriting, "If you ever need a friend, I'll be around. The world is cold enough. No one should face it alone." It wasn't romantic. It wasn't dramatic. It was simply human. And that meant more to her than any grand gesture ever could. Caroline began rebuilding her life slowly, first with rest, then with support from counselors, then with finding work again. She gained back her confidence, her independence, and the parts of herself she thought were gone forever. And through it all, Marcus stayed in her life. Not to fix her, but to remind her she deserved warmth in a world that often felt cold. Glowing star, if this story touched your heart even a little, please like, comment, and subscribe. Your support helps us continue creating stories that heal, uplift, and inspire. Speech balloon before you go, comment below, kindness still matters.